How you doing, everybody? My name is Jameson Slough, and I'll be your host for today. We are going to do a Hardest Hit Fund webinar series and have some really exciting guests, experts in the business that I'm going to introduce in a moment. But the first lesson is going to cover practical strategies for capturing and recovering Hardest Hit Fund dollars for your NPLs. It's going to be packed with a lot of information. Get the pencil and a pen and a pad ready to take some notes. And get ready for some great information. We're really excited to have you today. First off, I'd like to introduce our expert guests. We have Dan Castle from sunny San Diego and Debbie Somerville from out in Ohio. Dan is the Chief Operating Officer for Delinquent Note Resolution and a president of an asset management company. He's done some amazing work in the HHF world over the last 6 years, had some great recoveries in multiple states, great conversion rates, and he's been a visionary for streamlining the HHF platform in the future for investors and servicers. A lot of important information is going to come out of his mouth today, so make sure you have those pens and those notes ready. Debbie Somerville, she has a state perspective, was very instrumental in the Ohio program as the program manager and loan closing manager. Her Ohio program successfully funded over 25,000 Hardest Hit Fund deals. That's 25,000 families that were saved by the state program and could spend time in their home and focus on life. So really great job. One amazing thing she did during that time was close over 2,000 loans in the first 6 months. I don't know about you, but I don't think she slept very much through that 6 months. But I wanted to give them a quick, thank you very much for coming on board today, guys, and discussing your experiences and sharing some strategies with our audience that they could use in the future to capture these Hardest Hit Fund recoveries. So, Dan, I'm just going to open the floor to you just to say hi and a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is Dan Castle, as Jameson mentioned. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Delinquent Note Resolution, and as well as a president of an asset management company. I've been working on HHS for quite some time, know the ins and the outs, and always looking forward to learning more. Thank you for your time.
And Debbie?
Hey, Jameson. Thanks for having me today and for that great introduction. I am the Managing Director for Delinquent Note Resolution, where I oversee all operations of the company, make sure we're efficient, effective, and profitable. I have many years' experience in the affordable housing industry, and most lately as manager of Ohio's Hardest Hit Fund program. I'm looking forward to being with you today. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, guys. Thanks again for being here, and we're just going to get right into the discussion. As an overview for everybody, we're going to discuss a number of topics, but mostly focused on practical strategies for capturing and recovering Hardest Hit Fund dollars for your NPLs, whether you're a servicer or investor. But I thought it would be a good start for our webinar today is just to give a little history of the Hardest Hit Funds, what's going on in the market today, and let Debbie and Dan kind of give us their expertise and their knowledge starting off there. So, why don't we start with kind of the history of the Hardest Hit Fund, Debbie? You've been in and around the Hardest Hit Fund since inception. So give us your thoughts on the program itself and where it's going in the future.
Well, as you know, the program was launched in 2010 with an initiative from Treasury. And one of the great things about the program was very atypical from other government housing assistance programs. Treasury had some overall guidelines for states. These are the kinds of programs you need to have. You need to have a reinstatement program. You need to have an unemployment program to help people that have become unemployed, people that are underwater in their mortgage, but allowed states to implement the program specifically for their particular state and their particular region. The biggest programs were the reinstatement program, and that's where funds were used to bring a mortgage back to current status and back in good standing, and also the mortgage assistance program, also known as the unemployment program, where states provided funds to pay that monthly mortgage payment, either in whole or a part. Where things are going, as you know, Treasury just announced recently another $2 billion in assets to re-engage the hardest hit fund program. Many states had spent all their allocation or were winding down their programs. With this new initiative, these states are going to be able to re-engage and reactivate and help even more homeowners.
And I know, Debbie, the program at $2 billion this February, they extended the program for how much longer? I think it was 4 years or so to 2020. Is that correct?
Correct. 2020. The program was initially scheduled to close in 2017. So we've got another 4 years to really help homeowners prevent foreclosure and seek alternatives to foreclosure.
That's fantastic. Awesome. So, Dan, I wanted to reach out and talk about some of the distressed markets and what's going on today currently. What data do you have that can get us up to speed on where we are? I know delinquencies have been declining over the years. Obviously, the real estate market is coming back. Where do you see the market going in the future, and where are we presently?
Well, great question. Right now, what the market's telling us, I think in general, is that a lot of delinquent notes are still out there. They talk about the amount that the numbers that have dropped, but serious delinquencies are still a big problem. And that is an amazing opportunity to find solutions to those opportunities. I would guesstimate to you as well that the state of the foreclosure process is still lengthy, and the opportunity to go after loan modifications or other alternatives is there.
Very cool. And so we know we have a lot of money still left, and we know there's some problems in the market. Debbie, you seen anything different than what Dan's seeing from out there in Ohio, and what do you see in your local community? I know you worked kind of grassroots with a lot of homeowners over the years. Are you still seeing problems within Ohio itself, and where do you think this is going to go? And do you think Ohio is a good kind of footprint of what's going on with the rest of America?
That's a really good question, because Ohio is sort of a bellwether state. What goes in Ohio tends to go nationally. We still have huge pockets of delinquencies and foreclosures here in Ohio. We're not one of the top 5 states leading foreclosures, but we used to be. So we've made some improvements, but unemployment is still an issue. We have chronic unemployment in Ohio for many families. I believe it's 1 in 25 mortgages are underwater in Ohio. I want to fact check that for you, but there's still a tremendous amount of homeowners where the value has declined dramatically. So how can Hardest Hit Fund help? Some of the programs that were typically underutilized in the past, there's huge opportunity to help those homeowners. For example, the Recast program. That's a very easy program for servicers and homeowners to incorporate, because it's not a loan modification, but what it does do, it pays down some of that principal balance, and then the loan is recast, and that mortgage payment, it becomes much more affordable. So Recast is a program that really is going to grow with this next round of funding.
Great. Well, I just wanted to touch too on this distress data. If you're not aware, this is from a little bit aged, but as of last September, there's still 816,000 loans 90-plus days delinquent, and foreclosures are continuing to happen. So we have to do something about it. I'm happy that, and I'm sure you two are very happy that Congress decided to put another $2 billion here to allow those states to handle those problems and help Americans. A little bit about state programs. I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of recap again where these hardest hit funds are available, and Debbie, you've been right in the mix of it in Ohio there, but could you share a little bit with our audience what states have programs, what states are bringing their programs back online, and where you would suggest, if they were out buying NPLs, where they could focus.
One of the biggest issues we still see with foreclosures is, as I said before, the tremendous amount of foreclosures still occurring. Although it's true that foreclosures have dropped dramatically, all because of programs like hardest hit funds and the Making Home Affordable programs, there's still a lot of work to do. Florida is a prime example of tremendous opportunity because it is one of those top 5 states that have the most foreclosures in the country. So looking at Florida as an opportunity, where Florida has a lot of resources still available in the hardest hit fund program. They have the unemployment program, they have the reinstatement program, and they have that recast program that I mentioned a few minutes ago. California is another opportunity because they have lots of dollars to assist individual homeowners to get that mortgage current. They have a great principal reduction program. They have a great mod program combined with the Housing Finance Agency's hardest hit funds is very robust, and it really can penetrate the market. Georgia's another area where there's a lot of opportunity. They have their unemployment program. They also have a second lien program. So folks that are buying second liens, take a look at Georgia and take a look at that second lien program because HHF funds can be used to reinstate or pay off that second lien.
Excellent. I know there's other states out there. We just kind of threw up these three states for our audience. And there's obviously, Dan, you've worked in multiple states. I think Michigan and New Jersey, back with your own asset management company. What's your opinion, Dan, of some of the states that you would actually be aggressive in if you were an investor? Well, you are an investor, but investors out there are looking at NPLs and purchasing those and using a loss mitigation solution like hardest hit funds.
Well, I think you have to coordinate the capital recovery under hardest hit fund deals, and I do think it may encompass for some companies, their holdings are in, let's say, the Midwest, and it may encompass those areas where we go after. But I do think that the solution and model is to find the cooperative client and define your states, and as well as go through the processes with experience and make sure that you're set up to handle the whole process. There are some changes that have occurred recently, and we can get into those some other time.
Sure. So what I thought was really interesting is $9 billion totally allocated. There's still almost $4 billion on the table here for investors and servicers to go after, and that number is pretty substantial with only what are we looking at, 40 months or so, 42 months left to capture these. I mean, Debbie, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Could you kind of speak to where you see that money flowing and how many homes we can save for families and the overall net effect you think it's going to have?
Well, Jameson, you're absolutely correct. It's a huge opportunity. Remember, when this program was first announced in February, there was a small allocation and only, I think it was 5 states qualified. And in a very quick amount of time, Congress realized, states realized, and homeowners realized that this money needs to be spread around to more states. So that's how we ended up with 18 states. And Ohio received over $500 million initially. And Ohio is going to be receiving another $200 million approximately. Many other states are receiving additional dollars as well. There are some states that did not qualify, of course, so we want to make sure when you're looking at your investment strategies and your purchasing strategies that you want to make sure you know which states are not participating anymore and which did not receive additional money. Alabama, for example, did not receive additional money. A couple other states did not apply. Arizona, Nevada. Now, Florida didn't apply, but they still have a substantial amount of dollars out there, so that's still a good target, especially with the high level of foreclosures out there. So programs that historically were underutilized, as I mentioned before, in the Hardest Hit Fund program are prime candidates to target for repositioning your notes. Again, Recast is a very, very good program. It's loan modifications tend to bog down just a little bit with re-underwriting and a lot of additional closings. With the Recast program, that servicer gets that money, the principal is reduced, and the loan's recast. So look at the Recast program, and in a state like California, definitely look at the loan mod program.
I think what's great is Dan and Debbie, you guys have your finger on the pulse of what programs are where, so they're a great resource for everyone that's listening to this call to contact and get a quick analysis of where they are, what's going on with their assets, and what states are actually producing and are ready to handle volume HHS in the future. So today, and I really appreciate you guys kind of recap, just talking about kind of the lay of the land here from an HHF perspective and what states and what money's out there and whatnot. But the real meat and potatoes of today are to give practical strategies on what those investors that own NPLs and what those servicers should be doing. And I thought would be a great way to segue into this is what do you think the pain, what kind of pain they're experiencing today? Like Dan, tell me from your experience. Obviously, you work with servicers. You're an asset manager. You've kind of been in and around the Hardest Hit Fund deals and those programs in various states. There's got to be pain that you've experienced, although you did a great job. I think 58% conversion rates. But explain a little bit of the pain you see that's happened over the last years that has kind of prohibited more dollars being allocated to borrowers and servicers to help the borrowers. Give us a little insight on what you've experienced.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to the challenge of completing a complete package for the state to get underwritten for housing assistance. It can be a challenge. So I would say that has been one of my main focuses in management to streamline that process. So I'd say that would definitely be one, people having to complete their paperwork every month until they get taken care of, and even just completing files. So if I were to name one, that would be it. Second one is most of the people you'll discuss this with have never decided on solutions for their companies. They're understaffed, there's changes going on, there's a lot of moving parts, compliance, so forth. So I would say that would be another pain is, trying to get that whole system operating properly, trying to keep their staff motivated and handling and managing the common data files.
And when you were doing it, Dan, when you were an asset manager, what did that team look like? I mean, you were out, you had over 1,000 assets, and you were working through, and some of these qualified for HHS and others didn't. But when you went out in that strategy, what kind of what's that team look like for a note holder or an investor that has thousands of assets?
Well, generally, a lot of it I felt started with the legal team and the workout approach, having control of the asset, being able to make decisions and make decisions quickly. It was also about communicating with the servicers and then being able to respond quickly. So I felt that there was a number of things to focus on.
Great. And Debbie, if I could jump over to the state side, and I'm looking at from a state perspective, what's some of the pain you experienced trying to basically get that money out to borrowers and work with the servicers and work with the housing counselor groups? What did you see, and what do you think exists today?
Well, I think Dan hit the nail on the head in one regard when he talked about working with so many different third parties. You've got your outreach team, you've got your servicer, you've got the homeowner, you've got the housing counselor, and you've got the state. One of the challenges we saw at the state level was how to manage all of these third-party moving parts. And it's almost impossible unless you have the right kind of solution and software to do so. Housing counselors are independent. Homeowners have their own idea about what they want to do to save their home. And with the consumer to business model, as we saw it, many times we received an application, worked very hard to get all the documents. Everybody knows the document chase and the aging of documents. So that's always a challenge. But once you have your complete application and it's submitted to the states for underwriting, a solution is generated. Again, we have that third-party housing counselor. We have that third-party homeowner. Now we've got to engage the servicer at this level or the investor. And many times, Dan mentioned the common data file, which is a way that states and servicers communicated together to share proprietary loan-level information. Many times when that CDF hit that servicer's desk, the servicer's blindsided. We can't accept this solution because we actually cannot do a loan modification for this particular loan. Servicer has to deny it. It gets sent back to the state, and the whole process starts over again. So the solution for that is to be able to effectively manage all moving parts and ensure that a solution is generated on the front end between the investor, the servicer, and a group like Delinquent Note Resolution to effectively manage that process. And when that state underwrites the file, sends the common data file with the request for loan level information and to approve the request for the proposed solution, there's not going to be any blind side. The servicer can respond quickly and the file can move forward and the servicer gets the loan recapitalized or funded and that investor's note becomes performing.
That would be that's music to everyone's ears, right? We're just recapping on the pain that we've experienced and that everyone's experienced out there. Is a lot of moving parts, a lot of parties involved, a lot of questions asked to the borrower, a lot of data points required by the borrower, and all that gets kind of thrown in the mix and aging paperwork and whatnot. And effectively, we don't get to help as many people as we really want to help or that even are qualified to help. And I know, which is really cool, is, Dan, you had a vision after going through kind of all that pain of how to kind of fix that. And you developed that vision into a process, a streamlined process. And obviously Debbie coming on board and helping you from a state's perspective really refine that process so you can help all of our listeners today, move through an HHF process that doesn't have a lot of those potholes that are typical. So maybe we could just briefly talk about the process, Dan, and that those solutions that you're providing now, and they're all born out of what? Out of pain. So why don't we talk about the solutions and strategies that you suggest, maybe in a three-step process where you could easily explain to our audience how it would work and
Sure.
why it would work.
Right. Well, I think if we could all just agree, you want to develop a solution in the model, okay? For cooperative HHF clients, my belief has been before you do a loan modification, okay? So in a perfect world, you're going to go after the reinstatement money and as well as assisting the client. But I would look for higher recovery opportunities on what I have existing. For instance, on the stack on my desk, I have a ton of delinquent borrowers who are in touch with me. I get them into the fastest system and I get working on them quick. That's paramount. Second situation I would probably do is develop a good system for responding to clients who you've been in touch with over the last 60 days, but maybe they've sort of dropped out, okay? So in other words, the first situation is to ensure you get the people that are on your desk. Second situation is get the people that aren't quite cooperating or responding, okay? And I think that's really key. And the third thing I think is definitely good is to have an experienced team that's worked with the servicers and the investors. And, on the front end, identify the best programs, the HHF programs for each asset. And, the current model focuses on the consumer doing a lot of this, and from the get-go, they're not even qualified. And then you're dealing with hundreds of fields of paperwork. So I'd also limit that. Like our system limits the amount of paperwork initially. So we're gonna use a filter, and that's what I would suggest you do first. Look what's on your desk and develop it.
And that kind of prohibits that, you have a ton of unqualified applications coming in that kind of bog down those other stages, right? Whether it's the housing counseling stage, hopefully those housing counselors do a good job and get that application that's fully qualified for the state. But that first bottleneck, if you will. Debbie, what did you see? I mean, what did you see from Ohio's perspective when you were doing? Was there an overflow of applications, and how many got approved and got rejected? Like, give a little insight on that.
The majority of applications that came into Ohio, as well as other states, were incomplete. Again, with the issues with income documentation, for example, and know that many of the clients we're working with are not sophisticated financial investors. There may be a single mom or mom and dad. They could be a first responder. They're working their jobs maybe 50, 60 hours a week. Then they come home and work their second job, which is to raise a family. So trying to figure out what was my original mortgage, I can't remember what my interest rate was. That's very, very understandable that they're not able to obtain that information. So we saw a lot of the process bogged down even on the front end. We also saw that the majority of applications that came in, many times the homeowner got application fatigue and gave up. We had many, 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 many applications that became inactive. More applications became inactive and were denied than applications that got funded. And that's a fact. It's something that, again, we see a huge opportunity because those homeowners that were denied or became inactive or couldn't complete their application or had a circumstance that changed or gave up, they're still struggling. They still have a need. So there's still a huge, huge market for these funds. And again, the solution is to work with someone who can manage all these moving parts, work with a company that's developed a B2B model, business-to-business model that works on the front end to do problem solving on the front end with that investor, with that servicer, so that, and coordinate that with an outreach action to that homeowner so that the process becomes streamlined and flows, and utilize a system that fast-tracks those files through the HHF process.
That's excellent. I mean, just having that ability to get those funds to those homeowners and save their homes is spectacular. And I'm glad we talked about those solutions and strategies. We have a little bit more time, so I wanted to go some questions from our listeners. We had John from Orange County. He's in the servicing business, and he asked, how do we get approved, and what's the process for getting approved for HHS? And maybe, Debbie, you could handle that question for him.
Thanks, Jameson. And John, that's a great question. I think what you're asking is, I'm a servicer. I want to participate in the HHF program. How do I join the ranks? Each state has their own process to certify and vet a servicing organization. Some states are much more flexible. Some states will not have investor-owned, private-owned, seller-owned notes. Those folks that are servicing them participate. So the best thing to do is to contact the program liaison for each state that you're interested in participating in. Also, there is a resource that sometimes we forget about, and that is our friends at Treasury. They're very active and engaged and are very supportive of this program in states and servicers. So if you're having any questions or issues, the hardest hit fund department at U.S. Treasury will be able to help you.
Great. I have one more question, and this is from Pete. He's a large note investor, it seems. He's got thousands of notes with a high percentage of NPLs. And he's asking, the question is, why is this taking so long, and why is the process taking so long, and how can I improve the recovery time from last year? Dan, did you want to field this one?
Excuse me, sure. Yeah, I'd say the first thing is going back to the beginning of the process, evaluating your existing asset, taking a look at what your goals are. If people are ready for modifications and you're already in touch with them, I'd identify those. Next step is I would also look at the solutions with your investors on what they seek on each node, and I just evaluate what you have. And then I would make sure that your servicer or, the people that are assisting you get your management meets with them and you work out a program that's going to work for a servicer. Realize that they've got to provide staffing and receipt of monitoring of records and maybe preparing forbearance agreements or legal will be. So that's how I would recommend you beginning. Thank you.
Great. Well, everyone, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been my pleasure to have Dan and Debbie on this webinar. They're just an amazing resource for your hardest hit fund deals, as well as just how the state runs, or from an investor aspect. They're a great resource for you. And I put up the contact information here if you'd like to reach out and talk to them. Their phone number is 1-877-443-6645. That actually is 1-877-HHF 6645. Their emails are right there. You're happy to visit them they'll be happy to talk to you on any of their social networking sites. Go ahead and link in with them. They're on Facebook as well. And then obviously if you go to dnresolution.com, you can learn more about what they're doing to facilitate, getting that almost $4 billion out to homeowners. So I want to thank both of you for coming online today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audiences appreciate all the strategies and information you share.
Thank you so much, Jameson. It's been a pleasure. And Dan, it's good to talk with you too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both for your time.
And to sum up, everybody, this webinar is one in a series that'll be coming up. So be on the lookout for additional webinars that cover strategies and helpful hints to maximize your portfolio. So thanks for joining us today, and you guys have a great week, and best of luck in your business.